Well, quick question. Have you ever created a navbar and then it looks so good on mobile, and when it gets to desktop, bang, becomes something else? Well, I have a solution for you. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. So in today's course, we'll be building a navbar from scratch, and we'll be using a mobile first approach. Then we want to make it responsive on desktop, see how it breaks and fix it. So without further ado, let's dive into today's lesson. Basically, over here, we don't have anything we haven't discussed before. So let's just take a look at it. Let me just increase my screen a little bit. Move the night light here. So this is better. So we have our doc type HTML, which represents, we're trying to tell the browser that we are writing HTML5 code. We also have the HTML tag, which can go in with the attribute of language, which is English. We have the header tag. We've talked about this in my previous video. Feel free to check it. So without much, let's just get into it. We haven't really talked about the link tag, which I used for linking the CSS to my HTML using this hypertext reference link, and specifying the name or the document in which the file in which I'm going to be writing my CSS. And also we're going to be applying JavaScript for our responsiveness and for the icon also. So we are using JavaScript. So let's get straight into it. We want to first use our header tag. That's because header is used for things placed at the top. So in our header tag, I want to have a name logo, right? So that this will go in with this will essentially go in with our logo and the name, right? So for our logo, it's going to give me anything. I have a bunch of SVG we can use. So let's let's have a logo here, right? And we have our name. Just give me this span, and I'll call it Moneypal, right? So for our logo, I'm going to import in an SVG right here. I don't know, I'm just going to use the second SVG to import, copying and pasting it. So this is what I want to be on our logo. So let's go ahead and open live server. Yeah, so you could see the logo is just too big, and we have a bunch of work to do. And styling is done through CSS. So let's head over to our CSS. Let's share the screen here. And remember, we're designing for mobile first. So I'm just going to inspect and use an iPhone XR to work with. So nothing serious in my CSS. I just have a bunch of routes which are defined colors that I want to use. Probably go for another one. So just interactive. So well, first of all, I want to target my universal selector, which I want to define a few things, giving it a margin of 0, padding of 0, and also box sizing, border box. Also, I want to target the HTML and give it a font size of 16 pixels. Well, this is to make sure our text looks the same on every browser. So, yeah, essentially it works. So Also, our body, nothing crazy. I just want to give it a height, minimum height of 100 view height. 100 view height. For now, see what we want our body to have. So let's head over to our header, which is the first thing we want to style. Well, our header, I want it to have a display of flex, obviously. I want things to lay horizontally. Then I also want to define the width and the height for it. The width, I want it to be 100% width, and the height to be 100 pixels height. That will do for now. So we have our name logo, right? We have a bunch of class here. I'm just going to copy all of them so we can reuse them. We have our logo. We also have our SVG, which is link icon. Yeah, I'm going to copy that too. So essentially, these are what we need to go on. So I'm going to paste the first. Well, I'm doing this by using Windows V to open my clipboard, and the first is name logo. Obviously, I have to put a dot. Name logo. So we want to give it a display of flex. So we also want to paste in other classes, right? You obviously have to put a dot before. I'll give it a width of 30 pixels, right? Also an height of 30 pixels. So target the logo class. Giving it a background color. I have a defined variable, so I'm just going to write it. Also a padding of 8 pixels. Right, so let's move on to our header and give it a border bottom of 1 pixels solid and also a defined color, right? And also let's give it an align item property of center. Heading over to our name logo, giving it a border of 1 pixels, yeah, solid red, just to see the container which it is in. So we would obviously need a gap, which will give it. I also want to align items to the center that fits together. So I want to add a border radius to our logo, about 10 pixels, just to give it a curvy edge. Then I'll target our span class in our name logo. You know, and I want to give it a font size of 1.4 rem. I also want to give it a font weight of 700, right? So I don't like this text. I'm just going to make some changes right there. I want to change the font family that I'm currently using. So I'll head over to our universal selector and choose a font family, a different font family. So feel free to play around with anything that you would like. For mine is this. Yeah, I think I like this better. Just going to comment out the border that we've put. Remember, it's just for visibility, just to see what we're doing. So using this padding feature, this is a padding feature that takes in the four angles, which are the top, bottom, left, and right. So I don't want to do for the top and bottom. I just want to do for the left and right. So I'm just going to put in 0 for the first value and 16 pixels for the second value. And this is just left and right padding. And also, I've talked about all these in my previous lesson. So if you are new to, HTML, it's best to go check all these out. You learn a ton from there. So having this, what we want to do next is our hamburger menu, right? Also, I would like to give the body a background color, right? That would be cool. Just don't want plain white background color. So this is cool, but either ways, I don't want my header to have that background color, so I'm going to give my header a different background color, right? So let's work with this. So we want to get to have our icon, right? And we'll be using animated icon. So hey guys, you're about to learn about animated icons, and this is cool. Let's get to it. First of all, I want to have a div called the container, right? And I want to have probably a call it line, and I'll duplicate it a couple of times. Line 1. So I'm supposed to have 3, my bad. I'm just gonna remove 1, right? And just change this a couple of times. So I have my line 1, line 2, and line 3. So this is all I need. And also, I like to give it an ID of hamburger. You get to know why very soon. So all we need to do, let's just target the container and let's start styling. So we have line 1. Just put them together, I guess. 2, line 3. I want to give it a width of about 25 pixels, right, and a height of about 5 pixels, right, and a background color This is black, right? So that's it. Also, I like to give it a margin 0, 6 pixels left and right. This will do. Also, I want the container to have a display of block and the cursor of pointer, right? So let the margin just be for everything. This is better. Probably smaller for the top and bottom, which I will probably just give a margin of 4 pixels, right? So more closer. Yeah, let's work with this. So we could see that they are close to each other, and this is in the header. So what I just want to do is to justify content and give it a property of space between, so it goes to the extreme edge, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a class that whenever it's being clicked on, we're just going to add that class to it using JavaScript. So that's the logic behind it. What I'm going to do is just add a change class. Then for line 1, I want it to transform and translate to 0, 11 pixels, right? Also want it to rotate to minus 45 degree. Well, nothing changes right now because I'm obviously adding a class that is not there using, it's not there in my HTML, but I'm going to add it with my JavaScript, but it's going to be triggered by an action. So I duplicated this a couple of times, and this will be line 2 and this will be line 3. What we want to do at the middle line is to hide the opacity. I want to give it an opacity of 0. So for this, we're just going to, reverse what we did here. So where there was minus, we're just going to remove the minus, and where there wasn't, we're going to add it. So this is how it's going to be. So let's work with this in our JavaScript. So this is where the ID comes in handy. We're going to declare a variable, call it hamburger, or I'll call it animated icon. Yeah, I'm not sure I used a defer property in my JavaScript. So guys, defer properties helps in loading. Whenever your page is loaded, it first loads our HTML and CSS first before working with JavaScript, because JavaScript might not run if it doesn't meet an HTML and CSS, which usually causes an error. So it's a good practice to always put your defer. So our animated icon should add an event listener, which listens to the event, to the click event, and runs a function. So it runs a function, and what I want it to do. So whenever animated icon is being clicked, I just want to add the class. I just want to add the class of change. So for animated icons, so class list And I want it to be a toggle so that it can occur in different ways, right? The toggle is just it applies whenever you click and you click, it just keeps on interchanging. It uses the true and false method. So just want to add the class of change, right? So boom, and that's all. So whenever I click on it, well, it changes. So guys, there's a little bit of uncool things going on right here, and let's fix that. First off, I think I'm going to remove this margin. Yeah, doesn't make any sense. Let's see this. Oh, this works. So because of our uneven margin, it makes it uneven. One of the things is that this is too boring for a front-end developer. It doesn't even animate. So we're going to fix that in a sec. What we're going to do is to add the transition property, right? And we want transition all, and we want to do that for a timestamp of 0.4 seconds, and we're using the property of ease. So this should animate smoothly. So we've successfully added our animation and our animated icon in it. Another thing I want to add is our nav. So right now, let's just add our nav into it. We have our nav element where I want to style our nav and put in a few things in there. First of all, let's go ahead and style the nav. And so since we're designing for mobile first, we just want to, give the way our nav is going to look like. I would have liked to put in something there, but nothing too crazy. So first of all, I want to, since our nav is not going to be coming from a normal flow, so I want to give it a position of fixed, right? So it goes out of normal flow. Also want to give it a background color, the same as the header. Also want to give it a top of 100 pixels directly below the header, and give it a bottom of 0 so it spans to the bottom, right? Starting from the left, 0. Most importantly, we need a width, and I'm going to give it a width of 100%, right? This should show. Yeah, so this is what we want to do. So we have our, this is the nav layout. This is basically what we want to pop up whenever it's being clicked. So we just, put an overlay on it. And thinking of this, the Z index will work, and they just give it a Z index of 999. Fine. So let's put things in our nav. Let's first start by defining a class of nav links, right? And in my nav links, I just want to put in an SVG and probably just anything. Actually, we're just designing. So I have a bunch of SVGs that I've put in here. I'm just going to copy and paste it, and just going to write in something. So I'm going to use our anchor tag for this, and we just write in by. So yeah, let's just work with this. The general container holding this is the nav links, and I want to give this a class of nav icon. copy this class as well. This is all we need to style. So let's head over to our index.css and start styling. One thing I would recommend doing is always commenting. This helps for clean code. So I'll say navigation bar. Yeah, just comment this. So we've written a few codes, and this one was of our animated hamburger icon. So I'll just comment it. It's good in case if someone wants to read your code, at least this is human friendly and the person will see. Obviously, header is visible, so I think this is cool. Yeah, we could start from the name logo too. On the left, just anything your future self can also read. So it's good to just have documentations. So let's paste in the essentials. First we have is our nav link, which puts the both of them. Supposed to have a dot there. So for our nav link, obviously we want a display of flex too, right? So you notice a pattern we'll be using display of flex, display of flex. And I also want to style the icon. This looks kind of too big, and give it nav icon, right? So I want to give it a width of probably 20 pixels, nothing big, nothing too large, and a height of 20 pixels. So still using the same ideology of parent and child. So we have the nav link, which is the parent, and the a, which is the anchor tag. First of all, I want to remove the text decoration. So we have the text decoration of none. And also I want the cursor to be pointer. It's automatically pointer, or just to be clear, good, right? So I want the font size also to be about 1.2 rem, right? And I want the color to be my secondary text, right? Also, I want the color of this to be my secondary text. So that goes hand in hand. And also, I want to give it a gap of 8 pixels. That looks kind of too much, so I'll give it a gap of 4 pixels, and I'll also give this a font weight of 500. Yeah. Also, I want to align items to the center. So I want to add in the nav, I'll just give them a pad in the nav. So nothing at the top and bottom, 16 pixels to also match with what we've done so far. All right. So basically, this looks kind of small in the eyes, but we'll work with this. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate these nav links a couple of times, probably about 4 times, right? 4 times. Then I'm going to give it a container holding the boat, and would name it nav container. Okay, I don't want this to get confusing, right? So this container starts from here. I'm just going to cut this out and take it to the bottom. So where we have the last div of the nav links, and just paste it directly below it. and also, format document. So just to make it clear, I'm going to copy my nav container and put in a border so you guys can actually see what's going on here. Red. So you could see it's holding everything in it. So I also want this to have a display of, I like to use flex. We could use grid, but flex is cool. And we also have flex direction of column, all right? And giving it a gap of 32 pixels is cool, right? So one of the things I would like to do is add a border bottom on the nav links, right? Just for the aesthetics. But we could notice it's too close to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a gap of 16 pixels, right? So it doesn't look that far from each other. And I'm going to give this a padding bottom of 16 pixels, right? So this is essentially, this is better. I'm going to remove this. So let's change in the value so it actually looks different. This could be, since we're dealing with money, we could say buy, sell. Now change the SVG to something else, then going back to the SVG and checking on something else. Now pasting. Let's see what this looks like. I think I kind of like the height of this better. Well, I'll change that. So just giving it nav icon is going to change everything to what we want. We could see that buy and sell has the same logo. How? Well, I'll just fix that by putting in different ones. Also, oh, this is up. Check the second one. Probably this will be the logo. Yeah. Oh, still looks the same with sell. The something else we could use. Yeah, so this down, this up. Makes sense, right? So I'm just gonna do something. Want to do something? Just change all these to nav icons. Nav icon, right? Also nav icon. So this is going to follow our style of things, but it looks too small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to another icon and add this to 30 pixels and 30 pixels. Yeah, looks cool. And what I want to do is give this 1.5 RAM, too big, 1.3. Yeah, cool. So now let's just change this to a bunch of things. So we have buy, sell. This could be transfer and receive. Yeah, so we'll work with this. And one thing I want to do in our nav is to get the spacing. So I want to give this a display of flex, right? Obviously a bad idea. Well, flex direction to column, which makes it cool. And also I just want to give it a justify content of space evenly. Yeah. So yeah, let's use space evenly there. So obviously we already have where we could navigate and navigate to different pages. What we just want is a sense of, we're supposed to have our login sign up button. So I have this screenshot right there, having this login and sign up. So this is how the structure basically look like. So let's do that. So after this, within the nav, I want to create an auth class with a div and put in two button, right? First is for login, second is for sign up. Yeah, so let's style them. We could write our comment. So let's start styling them. For the odds, obviously want a display of flex, right? And let's look into the button. For the odds, we want a width of 100%. For this, we want a width of 50% each, and then height of, let's see, 50 pixels, right? Cool. Also want a gap of 16 pixels. Obviously it has a border and we don't want a border, at least for the first one. So since we want to be dynamic in our styling, I will just put in general styling here. So we have a border radius of 15 pixels to have that curvy edge, right? We want a font size of 1.2 rem, right? That is cool. Font weight of 500. Yeah, we could definitely work with this. So let's use a cool CSS, you know, pseudo selector to target the first child. So for the first child, we want a background color, and we don't want any border here, so we just put a border of 0. And also, just to make things even, I'll put this as 1.3, right? Just to make it even. So I think this is cool. So let's target for the second child, or we could call it the last child. So I'm just going to duplicate this and write last child. So I obviously don't want this styling. For the background, I want it to be white, which is the BG. Right, I want our border. Yeah, I want this to be the border, and that's basically it. So now we've styled how we want our nav to look like. We actually styled it. And also one more thing is to put in a cursor to pointer, actually relevant in desktop. Since we're using one code base, it's logical to do this. Yeah, so giving it a padding top, we could use a border top. For consistency of thin line. Was this enough? So, well, I don't think it was. Probably it didn't apply. You see? Okay, obviously did, but this wasn't enough. So I'll be giving it the 2 pixels, right? Yeah, this looks better. So one thing I'm going to do is to remove the border bottom from the last element in our nav links. So this is the last element in our nav links, which is receive. So I'm just going to go to our class nav link and add a style and put in the border. Just put in border of 0. That will do. So that removes it at the bottom. But looking at it, it's still clean, so we could still leave it, but I don't want to. So let's just work with this. Now we want to make our nav bar actually come to life. One of the things to note is we don't want it to be boring, so we're going to add a transition. Using a consistent transition, we're going to use what we previously used in the same time as our hamburger. So the transition is essentially from the left, right? And we want it to be from a time frame of 0.4 seconds. And we also want it to use the ease animation, right? So right now, we're just going to hide the nav by using minus 100%. So it's going to move 100% to the left. We then need to define a class of click, or probably slide Yeah, just nav. Yeah. So we want the left to be 0, right? So when this is being applied, so we head over to our index.js. But before that, I want to give our nav an ID. Of sidebar, move to our index.js. We also want to make things clear. So I'm going to write a comment, and this is for nav sliding, right? It could be anything, just anything you could remember. So I also want to create a variable, probably navbar equals to document dot get element by id. And what's the id? Just gonna paste it. We could just, you know, do this together within this. We just, so we avoid, repeating things. But just to be explicitly clear, we could do it separately, but not to waste your time, we're just going to do it in one place. So you want the navbar to add the class list. So we're going to go with toggle so they work smoothly. Yeah, so turns out it has to be, together like this. And also, we are not reusing anything, we're just going to add it so that it toggles using the same function. So automatically it's hidden. When it's being clicked on, it shows and it slides in, and when it's being clicked on, it goes back. So this is just something clean that we want to work on. So we've gotten this for, mobile. It's perfect on mobile, right? So let's see how it looks on desktop. Obviously there's much room on desktop and we want to make use of it, right? We don't want it coming too big on the desktop, right? So we'll have to work on that. So go back to our CSS and just writing a comment media query for desktop, right? And we'll be using that media screen, and so at what screen do we think we're going to have much room? So I'm just going to check on the iPad Pro. So on this screen there's actually enough room, so I'll use a minimum width of 124 pixels, right? So I'll work with this. At 124 pixels, I want our nav to, you know, have, want to remove some certain properties that I've given it. And first of all, want to take the position back to static so it follows the normal page flow, right? And we can see it already since it's static. We it follows the normal flow, right? And we want the flex direction to be row. One of the things I also want to do is our nav container holding everything. I want the flex direction to be row instead of column. Yeah, so this comes back to life, but we could see that there's little or no room for it, right? As you can see here, there's little or no room for it. So I'm just going to fix that first of all by targeting our nav link, and I don't want to display it, so I'm going to give it a display of none, right? So basically, you don't want to see our nav links. Oh, sorry, our nav icon, not the links. Use icons or icon. Yeah, so okay, perfect. I don't want to see it. I also don't want to see our hamburger menu, so targeting the container and giving it a display of none, right? Oh yeah, so this is fitting. This is actually fitting. Now let's give our nav a border so we see how well it stays in it. So we could see that everything doesn't really align properly. So I want to first give it a height of 100 pixels, right? So we are sure by spanning through everything. Then I want to give it an align item of center. Okay, so remember the padding that we put in this. So I think it's coming for us right now. So where we have the border bottom and we have the padding bottom, which is in our nav links. So it comes right for our nav links too. First of all, border should be 0 and the padding should be 0. Yeah, so that makes it fit in perfectly. I also want to add in more space in, yeah, the nav container. So instead of a gap of 16, make it a gap of 32 pixels. It gives it more room. So I think everything is aligned up here. Let's see how these do on big screen. So you could see. So essentially, guys, we start hitting some really serious things right here, and we actually need to tackle with it. Yeah, so we need to tackle with it. First of all, the login sign up is taking about 50% width of the space it gets from what we defined, right? Because it looks cool on mobile. On the auth, we gave it a width of 50%, right? So I'm just going to target the auth button right here, and we define this on desktop. So I just wanted to have a width of probably 150 pixels, right? So let's see how it looks. Well, this cool. It's cool. So yeah, let's use this. So we could see we have more space right now. Then we could just give the nav more space also. We just use justify content to space between, right? So just have equal spacing. First of all, I would like to view the alt button. Yeah, not the alt button actually, but the alt. So see the container in which it is. So alt is taking a lot of space actually. So just looking at the container, we can see reasons why didn't say this ain't happening. Well, I could give the nav a width of 100%, right? Still doesn't work. So this is essentially one of the problems we, get to start debugging whenever, you know, we want to make it responsive on desktop. I think we do need to remove those gaps and everything we've given it. So we gave it a padding top and a border top. So I'm going to remove all those padding top and the border top to 0 and border top or essentially just border to 0, right? So this should do the trick. Now we could align items to the center if we're using a display of flex. Obviously, this is not working. So we could do it in the general, which is the nav, and just, align items to the center. Everything falls at the center. Clean up all this. So basically, the alt is covering all. Alt is covering all. That's because I gave the alt button a width of 150 pixels, right? That was just for the button. So if you notice right here in the CSS, notice just before the media query, I gave the alt a width of 100%. So it's taking all the whole width there, even though you might not just see it. So I want to give it a width of fit content, right? So it's collapse. So yeah, hooray. This works. So now we can see it works now, right? Just removing everything, and let's go ahead to check this on desktop. So we could see from the layouts that I want to do, I want to put in the buy to the receive at the middle, and the rest at kind of the and the rest just kind of left, middle, and right. So that's the layout. But you can see what I'm getting. So this is one of the issues that you face whenever you're trying to make your navbar responsive. And now you know what's going to happen. Here is the fix. This is going to blow your mind, and this is where the solution comes in. And I'm pretty sure I have smart people on here that probably tell me, why don't you just use calc? Why don't you just divide them into three, give each different weight? Yeah, that's smart decision. But why don't you save yourself some stress? So here's what we're gonna do. We are going to add in this same auth here. Just going to copy it, right, and paste it outside the div, outside the nav. So it's just going to be with, yeah, this is going to be outside. So this is going to cause an overflow. And with this being done, I'm just going to hide the login and sign up, on desktop. Yeah, so now we have two auths copied, and I'll just give this a class of maybe probably desktop. Yeah, so what I want to do is I want our desktop to have a display of none, right? So whenever we're on mobile, whenever we're on desktop, I don't want it to show, right? Yeah, so now let's see where this fits in. Essentially, this is taking a lot of space, right? It's supposed to kind of shrink. So let's see if you could use a width of fit content. Yeah, so yeah, this works, right? So this works. There you go. Can you see how we fixed this just using a simple hack? So now we have this problem of whenever we're on mobile, this starts showing, right? So when we come on mobile, so now we see when we are on mobile, it starts popping up. So we're just going to check what we don't want to show on mobile, and looking at it, we don't want to show this on mobile. So I'm just going to give this a class of mobile and copy it, the one outside. So essentially, I'm going to paste dot mobile, and when we're on mobile, I want you to display anything. Yeah, so after putting the mobile to none, then it's advisable to put the mobile to a display of flex in here. So whenever it gets to the larger screen, it displays. So guys, this is it. We have come to the end of this. So essentially, we've seen how to, you know, use our layout them as they should, because I don't personally don't like the color on mobile on desktop. So just need to go to our nav links A, copy, then go into our media query and apply that. Right. So oh, I had a bunch of things I wanted to do. Let's just check it out. Yeah, so the color and font weight, those are what I want to change, and it looks better for me now. Not maybe not the best, but better. So guys, this is it. We have come to the end of this lesson. I hope you guys learned something, and see you guys in the next one. And as my channel implies, it's for beginners, so you've been noticing some beginners tips I've been dropping. So this is one of them. Stay tuned to my channel. Subscribe, like, comment if this was helpful in your projects for you. See you guys in the next one. Bye.